welcome to today's video. I am extremely excited because I brought on my good friend and Amazon PPC expert, Andy Craig, who's the founder of Ad Habit. It was actually a former student of mine who's gone off and just done incredible things in the Amazon PPC space. And why I'm so excited as well is not just reconnecting with Andy, but we're going to go deep on Amazon PPC and specifically Amazon PPC for launch, setting up bids, optimizing those bids, how to properly set everything up, how to properly optimize. And Andy's going to share all of his knowledge. And one kind of additional note that I want to make about Andy and why I brought him on specifically out of all of the other dozens of quote unquote Amazon PPC experts is Andy is one of the few who actually really shares value. Like will actually tactically show you, how he does things with his clients, where so many others, Andy, I'm sure you've seen like on LinkedIn or other places, a lot of great people in the space, don't get me wrong, but there's also a lot of sort of like superficial content of like, what do you do when optimizing bids? We look at click-through rate. It's like, okay, what click-through rate? Like what's a good or bad? Well, it depends on the product. It's like, okay, well, it does depend, but how do you assess that XYZ, right? And kind of going into those nitty-gritty details that, of course, a lot of PPC agency kind of founders don't really want to divulge. But I'm going to do my best to extract as much value here from Andy, but Andy's been great in our Facebook groups as well. So anyway, super excited. Without further ado, Andy, welcome. Super excited to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Finally doing this thing.
Yeah, awesome. So I know you've got kind of a presentation prepared to help us kind of walk through the Amazon PPC launch process. So you want to go ahead and kind of share your screen. And I'm assuming you might have a little bit of information to share as well about yourself and kind of the agency that you've created.
Yeah, I'll start with that. So my name's Andy Craig, for those of you who don't know me. Like Sumner said, I did his course and was a student of his years ago, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And then since then, I've launched my own Amazon advertising agency. We do ads mostly, but we also do full account management, listing optimization, all that stuff, because listings, good conversion rates give us better ads, right? So we do all that stuff. Been running that for a few years now. Really loving it. Love diving deep and helping clients grow their accounts on Amazon, big or small. We take all. I didn't mean to rhyme that, but it works out. And we do training and show people how to do ads at an agency level and show them how to do it for themselves.
Yeah, and that's one part I really love as a side note before we kind of dive in is exactly that a lot of agencies is kind of just like, hey, we'll do this work for you, and then you pay us X, to do this kind of work, set things up, optimize campaigns. And you do that and do a great job with that. But also what I really love is you're big on the training piece. Maybe for some of those sellers that can't, like they're getting started off, they can't necessarily afford. It's like, okay, there's all this information and misinformation in the PPC space. Here's some solid step-by-step training that you have provided. And I've heard great feedback from some of the students that I've sent your way and some of my audience. So that's one thing I really love about you. And of course, that we're going to do here is actually give a lot of this free value and information to you, which I'm excited for. So yeah, you can go ahead and pull up that presentation and we can dive right in whenever you're ready.
Sounds good. All right. So basically, welcome to podcast here, obviously hosted by Sumner Hobart himself, and then me, Andy Craig, as the guest. So we're going to walk through each one of these slides. Each one of these slides and start off with bid optimization for Amazon PPC. Sumner, feel free to ask me any questions along the way.
I probably will. Yeah. So.
All right. We're going to walk right into the next slides. We're going to be covering, starting with PPC, advanced strategies, intermediate strategies for ongoing campaigns, all of that stuff. So we're going to start. The first thing you want to do when you're getting ready to launch or you're getting ready to start tracking this stuff is set up clear goals, right? This is the first step we do with any client that comes on and works with us, is we say, okay, what do we want to hit? We want to hit an ACoS, right? Everyone loves hitting that tacos, and that's what we want to track. But there's also a lot of other metrics, right? Spend is a big one I see people don't really focus on because as you're optimizing, as you're cutting waste and adding negatives and pausing things, you tend to spend less, right? But you want to replace that spend with, increasing bids in certain campaigns, launching new campaigns that keep testing, because if you're not spending more, you're not going to grow. So that's definitely a big thing. Set those goals up, ACoS, tacos, spend, track your conversion rate, all that stuff, and we'll dive deeper into it. And then with the initial budget, right? This is very dependent on your personal finances. If you're just starting up, if you're not a big business, right? What is the initial budget that you have to launch for PPC, right? You need to be able to have enough money for, this order, the PPC, and the next order in order to, continuously run this business that you've started. So initial budget, you really want to kind of base it off of having a high ACoS in the beginning. Most clients I see don't start off with, even you should show in your training, Sumner, is they're not going to start off with that ideal ACoS and TACoS they want, right? So you may want to aim for, 80, 60, 100% ACoS in the beginning. That way you're prepared with a budget in order to kind of step that down over time. So make sure you have that budget. Let's see what I got. Push ad spend at high ACoS to gain rankings. In the beginning, you really want to start to push things. You're going to have a high ACoS, most likely. Some clients don't, which is amazing. And part of that is having the best possible listing, because you're competing against a bunch of sellers that have tons of reviews. They've been in the market for a while, have a lot of people already buying from them. So you have to come out better than them, have a better product, better listing. And that's where you're going to, get those conversion rate bumps, because you look better. And as your reviews go up over time, conversion rate goes up, and then your ACoS goes down. So
yeah, no, totally. And actually a couple of points I want to, and you might actually highlight this in like the next slide, but that really great what you said is, number one, yeah, when you're starting off, like your conversion rates, your click-through rates, all that, like that'll change with time, with different factors, but even just gaining more reviews and kind of that social proof alone, that'll obviously influence your, like the same kind of keywords and bids that you have initially will perform differently later in time when you have more reviews, you're more established. Also on the inverse side, if you get more competition than you did when you started off. So things change. It's not just like create campaign, set a bid, and this is going to be the same bid. And the second thing, exactly what you said, which is, I call it the same thing, is just kind of using common sense. And like, so you're starting off, even though you have a phenomenal product, which you should, great images, great product, well thought through, reverse engineered, like your competitor reviews and all of that data. Even that with, let's say, 0 reviews, or you get like 10, 20 Vine reviews that are like 4.5 star or whatever, that's a great start. But when you're competing against sellers with hundreds or thousands, you'll still be able to compete, but just kind of keep in mind with that low social proof, among other factors, that, to expect basically a higher ACoS, advertising cost of sale. You're also testing a bunch of new keywords right off the bat. So like, don't expect profitability right off the bat, and don't even expect it necessarily, like, it depends on the category, right? More competitive, but anywhere from 2 or 3 months, 6 months, maybe even longer, depending on your category, to really kind of be thinking about that. But basically, it's obviously when we talk about Amazon PPC, sometimes it's difficult because like PPC is an integral part of the Amazon kind of FBA ecosystem. So like sometimes we try to look at it in a vacuum just on its own, but it's like we can't, because it influences rank, it influences, everything else. Like if you're just targeting a bunch of like broad, like irrelevant keywords with low click-through rate, I'm sure that influences as well. Not just like on the spend, just wasting spend, but also like, I don't know, registering with Amazon's algorithm of like, oh, this is just not a good product fit. But yeah, so having enough budget for your initial order and reorders. And it sounds like what you're kind of saying as well is like, kind of set like in your mind, it's like, okay, I'll probably have somewhere, let's say between a 60 to 100% ACoS starting off, that'll taper down with time. So kind of reverse engineer that of like, and maybe you'll go into more detail about that, but you kind of like, what I think about it is like, set your kind of target ACoS and like work backwards of like, here's my target ACoS. Let's just say I'm using like Helium 10, like CPR, and I'm looking like, here's how many, units I need to move over, let's say like a 2-month period. So it's like, okay, I need to move like this many units per month. It's going to cost me this much with Amazon advertising. Here's what my budget needs to be. Where I think a lot of people, there's like, here's my Amazon budget. Like, what do I do with it? It's like, well, yes, okay, then maybe focus on exact match and phrase and super like targeted. But like, you basically, when you enter a market, again, this is going above Amazon PPC specifically, but it all integrates, sorry, I'm kind of like taking over for a second, but I'll
you're good.
Put it back to you. Just like an important note is like, make sure you're prepared for the category that you're entering. So you want to move a lot of units, that'll be more, you'll need to spend on inventory and advertising. So it's like duplicated. Like it's, so that's why I also recommend for most sellers who are starting off who are brand new, get into a less competitive niche, even just to learn the ropes. Even if it's like a niche you don't plan on like staying with, even if that product, maybe it caps out at $15,000 a month and you're not gonna be able to go past that, right? Start off, make some profit, and roll that profit into the next product now that you've kind of learned the ropes of it. Yeah, no, totally. So like be prepared with like a large budget for advertising, expect to be unprofitable and then break even and then profitable over time. It's not going to be immediate. So yeah, just kind of those call outs that you mentioned that I just want to kind of give more detail because of course, like you, I have sellers talking to me all the time. It's like the same questions people ask. So I just want to call that out. Yeah, and you're really not going to be able to do any of this if you're not tracking your numbers. You have to track your numbers and come up with a plan
to make sure that you're achieving those goals. So the next thing I want to jump into is, now that we've kind of set our budget, set what we want to do, we got our product down, right? Now we want to get into the keyword research. So with keyword research, Amazon has come a long way, and they've got if you're brand registered, they got brand analytics, they got, Opportunity Explorer, all these different tools. But in my opinion, you still need a keyword research tool like Helium 10, Data Dive, Jungle Scout. It was actually the Facebook group yesterday where someone asked Sumner, hey, should I get Helium 10 Jungle Scout? Me and you both chimed in. We love Helium 10. I've always that's the best tool for all-in-one, right? There's a lot of great tools that do different things, but Helium 10 has that all-in-one. You can do anything. So definitely get that keyword research tool. And you already mentioned it, right? Start that launch. You want to focus on, broad phrase, exact match types on those most relevant keywords that are your product, right? Because in my opinion, and what I see a lot with the audits that I do, is people will be spending money all over the place, but barely spending money on their best keywords, right? You're gonna convert the best when someone's looking for your exact product. So you want to make sure you're maximizing your spend there instead of having low conversion rates and high ACoS on a ton of different areas.
I kind of call that out, I'm not interrupting again, but exactly what you just said, kind of when you're looking for keyword research, this is kind of one metric that we use, kind of like we have different kind of phases, let's say a product launch, but sort of that first phase is we're focusing like for each keyword that you target, it's like really manually go through that list and even go into Amazon if you're not really sure, like take that keyword. Let's say you do keyword research, right? Like let's say you reverse ASIN search with Helium 10, your top 10 competitors, get a keyword list and then refine by, you just look at the keywords where the majority of your competitors are ranking on page 1. Because basically, and that's a whole other topic about keyword research and everything, but basically you arrive at your keyword list that you use to optimize your Amazon listing. And you're also like, okay, use that same list for Amazon PPC. But what you want to make sure you do is that keyword list of relevant keywords, or at least what we do. And Eddie, you can let me kind of know your strategy, is in that first phase kind of, either in our heads if we know it well enough, or actually going manually into Amazon, typing them in and looking at the products that show up on page 1 and basically assessing like, are 50% or more of these products that show up very similar to mine? Like, for example, if it was try to think of an example of something in this room, right? Like there's like a microphone. So let's say it's like, YouTube, or let's say podcast studio accessories. If I type that keyword in and I'm selling a microphone, like a mic that I have right here on my table, and let's say like 20%, like 2 out of 10 searches are like of the search results on that page are a microphone. That's not really, it's somewhat relevant because my product type's showing up, but it's only a few. Where another keyword would be, let's say like portable laptop mic, let's just say, and 100%, let's say 95% of the products on page 1 are that product. They're a mic. So it's sort of like that. We only starting off, like at the very first phase, is just target those keywords where 50% or more of the search results are products that are our product type. It's the same product type. So if I sell a mic, they're microphones. Not I'm selling a mic and then there's LED lights or there's like a webcam or whatever. So I didn't know if that's a similar kind of approach that you take or...
Yeah. 100%, right? Those most relevant keywords are when you go to that page, 50%, like you said, those products at the top, definitely at the top of the page, those are your products, right? And in most niches, they're competitive. There's a lot of similar products. It's rare for me to type in a search term and then there's like no competition, which I have seen a few times. I do have a couple clients that just launched in a niche of their own and just lucky enough to have zero competition, which is cool. But yeah, I 100% agree with that. So going into it, right, we're talking about launching those main relevant keywords. If you sell a garlic press, yours is stainless steel. If it has a wooden handle, go after wooden handle stainless steel garlic press, right? If there's search volume, that's a keyword you want to hit. Stainless steel garlic press, those kinds of things are relevant. All right, and then you want to also go after these main competitors, those other competitors that also sell a stainless steel garlic press. We want to make sure we're targeting them in sponsored product targeting. You could test out the sponsored display product targeting. Never seen it perform quite as well, so we don't do a ton of it in the beginning. And if you got a good video, we'll get into that a little bit, into the sponsored brand stuff. But okay, you have to, like it says right here, if you have a video ad, start testing it. I've had clients that have launched a video ad in the beginning and it just converts so well. It helps them with that ACoS struggle in the beginning because they have such a highly converting video. So definitely test it if you got one.
No, I definitely 100%. We've seen the same thing with our own brands. Like when we launch, like kind of like you said, we focus mostly on sponsored products. So sponsored product, exact phrase. I know you do broad, which is, I know some people in the PPC space have different opinions about launching with like broad or even like auto right in the beginning. But I know with broad, I think we talked about this before, that you actually, and again, I might be getting ahead of myself, you might be going into way more detail later, but that with broad match, you actually target with a lower bid starting off for launch, maybe exact and phrase are a bit higher in terms of like, let's say higher like bids that you set initially, but then broad is like much lower than the phrase in exact. Is that?
And I'll be going into that a little bit, but one of the things too is the shorter the broad search term is, the keyword is, really the lower you want to do a bid, right? If you're selling, wedding cake toppers, right? If you put cake as a broad search term, right, you want to go with a pretty low bid because you don't want it's going to show up everywhere. So anyways.
Gotcha.
And what we like to do when launching the auto campaign, we usually do launch it in the beginning. We start with lower bids, but one good way to kind of tell is launch your auto campaign. When you go to launch a manual campaign, all those suggested keywords that Amazon gives you, if those are super relevant, Amazon understands what your product is, so it should be safe to kind of launch that auto campaign. That's what we've seen.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's a good measure. Basically, like when you go into Campaign Manager, you go to like create a new campaign. It's like, what type do you want to create, manual or auto? You select manual, and then you look at the suggested. Like Amazon's like, here's a bunch of suggested keywords. Are those relevant to your product? If they are, launch auto. If not, then consider holding off. Launch an auto later, maybe when Amazon better understands your product. Is that kind of what you're?
And I didn't put it in this presentation either. But what we do with auto campaigns is we actually launch. It depends on how many products you have, right, and how many campaigns you want to launch. But what we like to do is launch each automatic targeting group, which are the close match, loose match, supplements, and complements. Did I say that right? Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
We launch those into their separate campaigns, right? We do one automatic targeting group per campaign, and sometimes we'll just start off with close match and substitutes, and hold off on loose match and complements, and because we've usually seen those perform the best on most accounts. And it's always different. Some accounts they just kill it with loose match, but majority of the time we see close match is usually the best. Getting into the campaign structure, what we like to do, and I assume this is the same with you still, Sumner, is run one ad group per campaign. That's always given us the most control, and the reason is because that budget is set at the campaign level. If you have multiple ad groups, you just can't control how much spend is going to go to each one of them. So that's what we like to do, one ad group per campaign. And when we're naming our campaigns, you want to start off being super structured in the beginning. And the reason for this is as you're optimizing, as you're doing things, you don't want to get confused. You want to have a campaign, know what's inside the campaign. So when you're optimizing the budgets, when you're optimizing the placements, like, what the purpose of this campaign is, what the product is, the ad type, the match type. And what we like to also add to our campaign name is the goal of the campaign, right? If it says ranking on there and it has a high ACoS, I'm like, it's got a high ACoS, still converting really well, I might be okay with this ranking campaign. Where if it's, let's say, a performance campaign is what I like to use, I'm like, no, my performance ACoS, I want it to be 40% or 30. So let's bring that down. Gotcha. That's what we like to put in each.
And are those the two main categories, ranking, performance? Those would be the two, sort of like, product name, ranking, and then,
So what we like to do is we'll do product name, and then we'll do the ad type as sponsored product, sponsored brand, sponsored display, match type, so exact, broad, phrase, auto, broad, modified, like category, whatever it is. And then at the end, we'll put like the goal of it. If it's, I like to use performance, ranking, branded, defensive, and that's most of them. So the performance is just like, this is my target ACoS. And then we like to even set target ACoS by match type sometimes. So we'll have different target ACoS for exact, different target ACoS for broad, phrase, auto. Sponsor brand might be even less. Same thing with sponsor display.
Yeah, that's actually a really great call out as well, that you're the one who kind of brought this to my attention, and it's something that we've implemented with our own brands and seen much better results, where what a lot of sellers or advertisers will do is sort of set, like, it's very common to kind of set a target, let's say ACoS for all your campaigns, right? Target advertising cost of sale, because it's basically like, let's say your gross margins, like, let's say it's like 30%, so you set a target ACoS of like 30% or 20% or whatever to stay at or below. It's a whole other side thing, but basically the more you spend on ads, you know, in a targeted way, right? Not just random broad match, like disorganized spending, but very targeted, very precise kind of ad targeting. You'll ultimately, for every sale that you give advertising, you'll make more sales from your increase in organic ranking, because you'll get more people to see your product, will organically buy. People have that question as well. It's like, why, if my gross margin, let's say, is like 35%, why would I set like a 35% target ACOS when I make $0 at the end of the day? It's like, we'll test it, number one, because we'll see. But in most cases, no, because from the increase in organic rank, you'll see more. But anyway,
I had a call. I had a call with a guy yesterday who had, he was complaining about his ACOS being high, and I did an audit on his account. He had a 1% tacos. I'm like, your ACOS doesn't really matter. You need to spend more money right now, and do it a little bit better. He was only running an auto campaign. I'm like, let's launch some more campaigns. Let's do this. Like 1% tacos.
Like he's just not even using the advertising real estate even like at all. Like he's just
and he was wondering why his competition was beating him. He wasn't showing up in ads as much as they were. So.
Yeah, and for perspective, again, because we have different kind of levels watching this video. If you're like, we said tacos, which I know is kind of in your background to your left. So there's ACOS, advertising cost of sale. That's like the percentage that you see within Campaign Manager. And basically, the higher the ACOS, that's the more unprofitable your ads are, for lack of a better word. And the lower it is, the more profitable they are, right? And there's that balance of spending $0 and then you get no increase in rank and your competitors crush you, but not spending too much to where like you're unprofitable, you're not cash flowing well. Like, so it's that balance of spending enough to help boost and keep rankings high, but not spending too much to where like you're losing money, obviously, because that's not the point of business. At least that's my way of explaining it, but that's kind of the ACOS. And then tacos is looking at your total advertising cost of sale, basically your total revenue and your total ad spend. So for example, let's say your ACOS, like it's 45%. And let's say your gross margin's like 35%. It's like, whoa, like I'm unprofitable. Like, whoa. Like, we need to stop advertising. But what you just said is like, wait, your tacos, your total advertising cost of sales, 1%. Let's say like 12% is a solid tacos for many accounts. Let's just say that, like 12%. Yep. His ACOS was 1%. So it's 12 times less than a good tacos. Like it's way under. It's like, okay, that just means you're spending very, very little.
Yeah, so back to it. If he has 30% margins on the product, that means he's making 29% margins after ad spend. Yeah. Right? Because that 1% tacos. 1%. If he had the 12%, if he had the 12%, what would it be at? 22% profitability. So that's the differences there. Jump back into it. We also like to do one parent listing kind of per portfolio. That's the easiest for us to keep it organized, especially if we need to, set portfolio level budgets at some point. Let's say we're running out of stock, or for any reason, it's easy to separate them into portfolios. You could quickly look at your portfolios on Amazon, have a breakdown of the performance on each. We use different softwares and tools to analyze things, but I always want to be able to fall back and compare my tools with Campaign Manager, with Amazon Business Reports to make sure everything is accurate as well. Yeah, and then, like I said, you could use those budget caps. I do recommend setting budget caps temporarily if you're going to use them at all. This is not a long-term strategy, because you're basically, when you set a budget cap on your account level or a portfolio, your good campaigns and your bad campaigns are capped, right? So it's best to control your budget at the portfolio or at the campaign level in the long term, but you can use those budget caps to temporarily like really get a hold of your account, optimize things, get it performing better, and then start to open it up a little bit.
Gotcha. Yep, totally. Yeah, exactly. So in the beginning, for those sellers and advertisers who want to kind of control spend, setting portfolio level budget caps of like all of your campaigns, let's say for a certain product that are targeting, like your microphone product. Let's say you sell a mic. They all go in the microphone portfolio, and you set like, I think it's, and because I don't really use them much anymore. It's like you can set monthly caps. Can you also do daily caps of all of our campaign spend cannot exceed this budget, like in this portfolio.
Yep. And that's what I see most people, they'll use like a daily cap. And then when I'm doing an audit on their account, right, it shows you the percentage of time you're in the budget on the campaigns, but it doesn't really show you like, hey, my ads shut off every day at 5 p.m., right? Unless you're tracking it hourly. Like they didn't realize that every day, halfway through the day, all their ads shut off, right? Which is not what you want.
Yeah, in order to keep your budget down, it's like, otherwise if you let it go and go above the budget, you're like, no, cut it off. And then it's like, maybe during some of those prime buying hours, your campaigns aren't running, but your competitors' campaigns are running. Let's say they're converting better at that time of day and yours are already off.
Yeah, so let's jump into initial bid strategy, right? Start with the recommended bids for your keywords. Now, this is really dependent on your budget as well. When you're first launching, right, if you just want to gather data, spend the money, get a feel for if people want this product, then yeah, start at the high end of the recommended bids. But like I already said once, make sure your listing is ready, right? Make sure it's ready to maximize your conversion rate. Everything looks good. You get good images, infographics, A+ content, brand story, all this stuff to maximize your chances to have a high conversion rate in the beginning. And this is really dependent on yourself, right? You could start off with the high bids to try to drive sales. That's going to get you the most traffic. But if you are a little bit more lenient or if you're a little bit hesitant because you want to be profitable, then you want to start low and work your way up, right? If you have a limited budget, start with the bids at the low end and just work your way up, getting impressions, getting clicks, looking at the click-through rate, conversion rate, all that stuff. And let's say you have 0 reviews or you got a couple, you got Vine started, you're going to have a very low conversion rate and click-through rate in the beginning. Now, I do like to see, that 0.2, 0.3 conversion or click-through rate or higher, but in the beginning, it's going to be low. So expect that. Just keep tracking it over time. If your reviews are going up, you should see that click-through rate go up as well as the conversion rate, as long as you're getting 4 or 5-star reviews. I also say set bids higher for high converting keywords and lower for like what we already mentioned, the broad terms, right? If we're going after, garlic press, that's going to be a little bit more broad than the stainless steel garlic press. Stainless steel, I could bid a little bit higher than just a regular garlic press keyword. And the reason behind this is you're going to convert better on certain search terms and certain match types. So you're okay to bid higher on those, where if you convert less, you got to bid lower in order to hit that target A cost that you're trying to hit.
Gotcha. So to kind of like, I'm putting in some of my own strategies here and like seeing kind of what you think of them. But let's just say hypothetically, like we've arrived at like 50 to 60 keywords. These are the keywords that we're going to be targeting with our Amazon PPC campaigns. Like they're hyper relevant. When we type it into Amazon, we see that most of the products that show up on page 1 are similar to ours. So we have that keyword list, and let's say, so we take that, we target those 50 to 60 keywords in exact match, in phrase match, and broad match, like in Campaign Manager for sponsored product ads. Then we look at, like, Amazon will give you a recommended bid kind of range, like a low, I think it's like what, low, medium, high, kind of, or there's low and high. And
I think they just do low and high, and then obviously there's everything in between. Yeah,
and then there's some, I don't know what it is, but kind of that suggested bid. It's not the middle bid, but it's like the suggested bid or whatever. I think it comes somewhere in between that.
Yep.
And then you're saying kind of like for those, like let's say exact, maybe even phrase, go at the higher end of Amazon's recommended bid. And then for broad match, still stay within, but go on the lower end maybe to start. Or, and again, like you said in the beginning, it depends on your strategy. Of course, we want to make sure that for us in our products, we're always aggressive. Like whatever amount of money it takes, we make sure we have that and some, we usually go about 30% above what we estimate, just to have enough room to like not run out of budget, like have everything we need, and even go like, because if we have more inventory, we'll sell out of that, or worst case scenario, the product isn't a huge success. We can liquidate on Amazon, just through high Amazon PPC spend, liquidate and then be done. Because let's say it has a low click-through rate, low conversion rate. It's just not a good product fit, even though we did all this research. So like basically I'm willing, even though of course no one wants to do that, of like put more capital up because it's just more risk, but we're always willing, both with the inventory side of purchasing the more inventory, as well as on the advertising side, to allocate more than what's needed versus the opposite of running out of stock, not having enough budget. So that's just but if, like you said, let's just say you have a lower budget, then maybe you don't go as aggressive and within Amazon's recommended bid range, you don't go at or above that. You stay more in the middle or even more to the low, and then see how it performs and then increase with time kind of later, because both of those can work. But I know for us, we try to be a bit more aggressive, assuming that our keyword targets are relevant. That's the big key. If they're not, then it's like,
I like to be aggressive. I like to start off, I'm all about data, so I want to gather the data, see what's working, see what's not working. And if you do start with your bids low, right, and you're not getting impressions, you have to increase them. Go in there, and I like to do it daily, right? So on things that aren't getting impressions, we got our bids low, just daily inch it up until we start to get those impressions and clicks that we want to get. Then those clicks should either turn into sales or not, and then you could really make a decision on if this is working or not.
And you mentioned something, I don't know, I'm like calling out like a bunch, more than I expected. But it's honestly, it's a super exciting topic, and I love talking about it and hopefully providing value to everyone watching. But you mentioned this, and I love, this is one of the things I love that you do with some of those specific metrics. You mentioned like starting off to make, and of course it definitely depends on your level of competition, the product category. Certain categories alone have higher or lower click-through rates just on their own, and things like that. Even like certain categories, let's say for glass breakable items, if you look at the average review rating for that whole category of glass breakable items, will have a lower average rating versus other products. So you can actually compete at a lower review rating because all your competitors have lower reviews because it tends to break and people complain about it or whatever, just as an example. Yeah. But that you said kind of one thing you look at is click-through rate, which we also look at. It's sort of one metric that we like to look at in our Amazon, kind of campaign manager dashboard of, it's not necessarily like just because you have a low click-through rate means your product sucks. Like you could have low click-through rate, high conversion rate. And there's different factors for that, right? Like with main image,
if
keywords
you're
that you're targeting.
If you're a premium product, you got a super high price, you're going to have a lower click-through rate and conversion rate than your competitors, but you might be more profitable, right?
Gotcha. But you're kind of saying like starting off maybe a 0.2 or 0.3% click-through rate is something that you...
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I see it a lot closer to the 0.1.
0.1.
But we're also going to be looking at, it depends on the product and the niche, a lot of this stuff, like you said in the beginning, right? It's all dependent. Yeah. But in the begining... Right, we're looking at that too. We're looking at the click-through rate and like, okay, this one's got a really high click-through rate. We might not have a high conversion rate yet, but we have a lot of high interest. So we want to look at, okay, they're clicking on it, they like the image, they like the price, they like the reviews possibly, and then they're coming to the listing and they're not buying. So now let's fix why is this keyword not buying, and then figure that out.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Talk about starting the broad match a little bit lower. So start the bids lower on the broad stuff, the categories, the autos, the broad, a little bit higher exact and phrase match on those best keywords. And then you want to start to review this stuff daily. Now, a lot of the clients that I see, a lot of the audits that I do, they get a little trigger happy. They go in and they just start slashing bids when they see one bad day. You want to review it daily, but you don't need to go in there and start slashing bids. Look at the history. Don't take one day at a time. There's always a lag with Amazon's data coming through, so wait till the next day. Review performance daily, avoid overspending, adjust bids based on impressions, clicks, sales. The most common thing I see thousands of audits I've done is that ad spend and impression share is limited on the main keywords. I already mentioned that once. Go sort by spend in your targeting tab. See where the majority of your budget is being spent, which keywords, which match types, and make sure you're spending in the right spot. You might have to increase your bids on those long tail best keywords where you're converting really well. And then one of my main metrics I want to look at on my best keywords that I want to be ranking on is what's my top of search impression share? Am I showing up a bunch on product pages, or am I actually showing up at the top of search where most of the clicks and sales are happening? So that's one thing we like to turn up a little bit on those main keywords is that top of search, which we'll get into a little bit more.
Gotcha. And how soon after like someone sets up brand new campaigns and launch? Oh, I guess you have it right here. So for like how soon after? Because that's a question I get a lot. Is like we usually wait at least like 7 days before we look back, and I like to look not like completely wait for 14 days. I kind of check in case there's some crazy keyword. Like sometimes like let's say I mess up, right? So like I set like a $6 bid when I meant to set a 60-cent bid for a certain keyword. So it's $6 is what I've set, and I meant to set 60 cents. Yeah. And it's just spending a ton, getting like 127 clicks, let's say, in a day or half a day. And I'm like, oh, like that's happened to me before. Or so obviously, full transparency, I've done that. Yes. Yeah, so that's one of the things to look through. Like, oh shoot, like I made a mistake. But also what you're saying is like within that time frame, whether 7 days, 14 days, like looking at kind of soon after launch, looking for those kind of high conversion rate keywords and making sure good spend's going there. And maybe for some of those lower conversion rate, we're getting a ton of spend, maybe start dropping those a bit. Is that something you're kind of...
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And like I said a minute ago, like you don't want to slash it completely. You're getting interest, you're getting clicks. You may not want to just like take the bid from $2 to $1, but maybe slowly drop it day over day. Depends on the performance of it. And also, like you said, if things are high converting, like everyone says, oh, wait a week, wait 14 days before you do anything. If something's working, start to increase the bids. If something's not, start to slowly decrease them. And those are those daily checks you want to do. If something's working really well, but you're running out of budget every day because your campaign budget is $5, increase that budget. Don't wait until the next week to do it. And then we got ongoing campaign management, right? You want to do a regular review, weekly, bi-weekly performance checks as well. And this isn't just like logging into the account. what I suggest to do is look at all the data, right? Look at what your spend is, look at the ACoS, click-through rate, conversion rate, look at your tacos, start to analyze these things, and you'll start to see the trends, like it going up, going down, and then you want to dive in and figure out what changed in the good way, bad way, and what do I need to do in response to that. And then for the bid adjustments, right, you want to go through, increase bids for high performers, decrease, pause low performers. I'm going to get more into this in a minute here, but daily optimized bids on high impressions, clicks, targets. Now, like you said a minute ago, Sumner, you'll wait like 14 days. But what we said, if something's getting tons of traffic, right, maybe I'll do a weekly optimization, but twice weekly optimization on my account. But if something's getting 20 clicks a day, right, I could really go in there and do, every day mess with the bid, every couple of days mess with it. Where a lot of my targets, I really don't need to do it as often because they might get 1-2 clicks a week.
Gotcha. Okay, so in that kind of, which totally makes sense as well, kind of like that daily check-in. You're kind of checking in and you're specifically looking at the high spend, like let's say 80-20 rule, like the 20% of your 80% of your spend going to like 20% of those campaigns or those targets. You're really drilling. So like the weekly or bi-weekly, that's sort of for all the catch-all, like all those other, the bottom, let's say 80%. That top 20% of your keywords, your targets that are just driving like the most traffic, let's say, or just the most spend. You're really looking at those and making sure things are correct from like, is there anything going well that I want to increase? Like good conversion rate, but it's like capping at, like I said, a $5 daily budget and it's maxing out $5 every day. Boom, like slowly start increasing that budget. And at the other end, like, or getting a ton of spend, but like getting no sales at all, or getting very, very few sales, if any, then maybe start. And like you said, which I like, and that's kind of your approach from what I gather, is being a bit more iterative of like smaller, more frequent changes versus more drastic changes over long periods of time. Kind of like checking in, like bids need to decrease, you decrease like by a few cents or whatever, like every day, kind of get it down and check back in. For other things to increase, you go, instead of like a big increase, a big decrease, it's kind of more like that, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Oh yeah, 100%. You want to do these changes, make them slow, right? Especially if you're getting sales, because if you're getting sales but your ACoS is a little bit high, slashing the bid, all you can do is stop all the sales and have zero ACoS possibly instead of a high one. So don't want to do that. We want to go through and like I said, do those daily checks to make sure you're in budget on your best performing campaigns. I like to do twice weekly full optimizations on the account, and those other days I'll go in the targeting tab in Campaign Manager and check on those top spending keywords, and then weekly placement optimizations. Now, when we do our weekly optimizations, we do everything in bulk files. We like bulk files. I think it's a lot more organized. I like FBA Excel tools like that to really get a feel for everything, be able to really look at the placements, the budgets, the bids, all at the same time when I'm making decisions on what needs to be. The only thing I really have to go back in the Campaign Manager and look at is my top of search impression share and things like that. So yeah, let's jump over. And I want to jump into a little bit of those intermediate strategies, right? If you've been doing PPC, you're in Campaign Manager, I do recommend starting to learn bulk files, right? Bulk files are going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to speed up your advertising. You're also going to be able to improve the performance, I think. I think being able to get a better view of it, understanding with the bulk files, keeps you a lot more organized and is going to give you better performance in the long run.
Yeah, and for a quick, if you're not familiar with bulk files or haven't used it, if you're doing everything manually in Campaign Manager, it's basically like all of your Amazon PPC data in like an Excel file that you can download. And what's really cool is you can obviously manually optimize that, or you can filter through or do different things with that. But you can use tools like Andy mentioned, I use the same tool, which is Ad Tactics by FBA Excel, which is a really great tool. Where you basically download your bulk file, upload it into one of these tools, and then you can make bulk changes. Like for all keywords in this portfolio with like an ACoS between 50 to 60%, then reduce bid by this percentage, or any click with 11 or more clicks with no sales or whatever, add this as negative exact in auto and broad or things like that. Like just these changes, like instead of doing every single one individually, that's how you're going to get these things done. Because especially with accounts with hundreds of SKUs or like thousands of campaigns, you need some level of sort of these bulk optimizations. So yeah, that's just, you go to your Campaign Manager, I think it's like sponsored products, generate bulk file or download bulk file. I do this like all the time, but I can't even remember the exact.
You go into sponsored products, you go to bulk operations,
Bulk
and then you'll be
operations.
able to go in there and check which files you want, time frame, and then request the bulk file. And then you'll re-upload it after you make your changes in the same dashboard.
Yeah, like download, upload, make the changes, download the new file, upload that. So it's like off of Amazon into the tool, back into Amazon, basically.
On my channel, I have like tons of tutorials on it. So,
awesome.
At the end, we can give a link to that. People could go look.
Yep.
I did a whole series on bulk files.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, we forgot to mention that. Yep. Yeah. Andy has a full YouTube channel going into more detail about some of these topics. So Andy, actually, if I kind of step in and maybe there's something that you go into way more detail, go ahead and call that out. We'll leave a link to his full kind of channel in the description section, as well as his agency. I just want to kind of call that out as well, because there's a lot of great content on your channel. Yeah,
I've definitely made probably videos on most of this stuff, pretty in depth. And let's go into it, right? There's other intermediate strategies, right? We have, and actually before I jump into this, FBA Excel, ad tactics, Sumner does have a link in the description below. Get the tool, great tool if you want to learn bulk files. All right, jumping into it. Day parting. Now, that's not something we do for every account, but it does work. We don't do it hourly with the Amazon Marketing Cloud, but we will do like, certain times of the day, days of the week. We could, adjust the bids, or we could actually pause the campaigns and things like that on certain times of the day. So that is a little bit more advanced strategy, intermediate, I guess, strategy that you can start to test. Placement modifiers is a big one, right? I do a ton of audits on accounts, and I'll go and they won't be using placements at all. And I'll notice like their top of search barely gets any impressions, barely top of search impression share, but yet their conversion rate is double on the top of search. And that just a simple switch, increasing top of search by 20-50%, starts to drive a lot more ad sales and helps with ranking for accounts.
So for some of those like exact match campaigns, like that are just like converting super well and like crushing it already, to go in and like, there's that option, like, your placement modifiers that you can increase, let's say 10, 15, 20%, that just increases your bid for top of search. Because there's different placements, right? Like your ad can go on like top of search, it can go in rest of search or product pages. So you're kind of saying like it's important to look at those top exact match keywords and consider testing a 10 to 20%, let's say, placement modifier for top of search to really boost that, and then check back in with ranking and profitability. Because we've seen that as well, kind of.
Yeah, and let's say you have a conversion rate. Let's say your conversion rate's 10%, right? We might see overall conversion rate 10%, but then rest of search, we might be at 15%. Top of search might be 20%. So we're able to bid a little bit more on these other placements because you're converting much better. Where most of the time I see product pages just don't convert as well. So we need a little bit lower bids there. And you're gonna tend to get a lot more impressions on product pages in most campaigns that I see, just because there's so much ad traffic on a product page. You get tons of impressions, but it's not as high buyer intent as like in search is going to be. So yeah, definitely use those placements if you're not. And one thing I'm doing right now for a client is doing some seasonal adjustments. They are, they're a summer product. Really, spring, summer is when people start to buy their product. So we're starting to wind down, get into August coming up soon. So we're coming up with a plan of where our bids need to be, because their conversion rates are going to start to drop coming here soon because people aren't going to be buying their product as much. So you want to start to track your seasonality. It's easy to do with tools like Helium 10. You can track the search volume seasonality. But if you've been around for a while, if you have previous data like Sumner, I know, some of your products, they could be seasonal as well. So when those seasons are coming, you could plan to start to increase bids and stuff when those things are popping up.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great point. And kind of how would you go about, like, what are the biggest changes you have, just out of curiosity, like ramping up into the peak season and kind of winding down? Is that more of like a big like bid adjustments of like you kind of winding up, you like start making some pretty big increases in bids, and then when it's winding down, like decrease the bids overall, or kind of like?
Yeah, that's what we tend to do mostly, because we will see conversion rates drop a little bit. So we'll tend to decrease our bids. It's really dependent on the account. If conversion rates drop, or if it's just a traffic drop. If it's just traffic that drops, we don't really need to change much with the bids.
Gotcha.
To where if it's like, a different category where conversion rates drop, we definitely need to drop the bids. So it's different with different strategies there. And then for Prime Day, one thing we do, like an event like Prime Day, is we'll download the bulk file before we start making a bunch of bid adjustments. That way, once Prime Day's end or Black Friday's over, we could upload that bulk file from previous, put all our bids back to where they were, so that we're not overspending after these big events where the conversion rate was way higher. So that's something we like to do.
Oh, makes sense.
And then I want to get into a little bit advanced, bid optimization tactics. So there's bid automation tools. These can be great, but they can also be dangerous. Just to let a tool just automate everything. I don't really like to use a lot of these, algorithm-based tools where you don't really know what it's doing. It's taking your bids, kind of driving it. It can be successful for brands, but a lot of the brands I audit, they've been with them and they've just seen opposite results. So I recommend, if you're going to use an automation tool, really understand PPC yourself before you, let something do it. That way you can monitor it, monitor the results, monitor the decisions it makes. It can save you a ton of time though, if it works correctly. I would say ranking is another big strategy we talked about a little bit, is pushing top of search, increasing top of search impression share. And a lot of this stuff is about tracking it, right? You want to track your organic rank with Helium 10. There's FBXL has a rank tracker that uses Helium 10, right? You can use that keyword tracker to track your organic rank and compare that with your bids, right? If you decide for stainless steel garlic press, I want to push my top of search impression share, let's get that up, start to monitor that, monitor the spend, the ACoS, the conversion rates. And as you're monitoring this, monitor your organic rank with your tracker, monitor your brand analytics with your market share if you're a brand registered seller. Like, all this is a little bit more advanced, and I'll be making, if I don't have a video, I'll make one very soon, but I'm pretty sure I do have a video on this, on how we like to track all this stuff. Because if you want to push things, you got to increase top of search and show up a lot more. Any rank strategies that you have outside of this? Obviously there's like outside traffic, which I'll get into, and things like that.
Yeah, no, definitely external traffic. And we've actually really been seeing like email marketing is just crushing, like even outside of Amazon for our own, like let's say this channel, like that's been a huge, and I've talked to Kevin Sanderson. I don't know if you know Kevin, you were just on one of the summits. External traffic for sure. We're gonna do some testing with TikTok influencers, we'll tell more when that kind of comes out. But I've done a lot with external traffic here. Google search ads as well, depending on the product, can be really solid. With Google search ads, target like your main, like those same keywords that you're targeting, those super hyper relevant that are about your product. Target those keywords on Google search, and then also target with the word Amazon before or after. So it's like, because people actually, a huge percentage of people go on Google, search for your product type, and then with the word Amazon, and then they go from Google to Amazon. So you can show up in the top, because that's super high conversion rate, because someone's looking for your product on Amazon from Google. So in terms of a Google ad standpoint, those are probably your highest converting keywords will be those. And of course, it depends on your product. If you're, a bit higher volume, that'll work. If you have a lower volume product, like you're not going to get probably much traffic from that. But worst case scenario, you don't get any clicks, or, very, very, very low spend, if anything. And, but yeah, Google, it's some external traffic, paying, TikTok influencers, get 5 of them, pay them $300 a month, and give them, and then every day they have to create a piece of content for you. This is a tip I got from Ryan Rigby that I would really want to try out. And so $300, and I'm going into like off the weeds of Amazon PPC a bit, but just a random thing I want to share. Like, I might be making a full video after we do a test with our newest product that we're super excited for. But $300 a month, 5 influencers. Each, they need to post 1 time per day with your product or like your product line. And then for any video they have that gets like 50,000 or above views, they get an additional, let's say $100, $200. And that can all be a link. You can either send that traffic directly to Amazon, but really you can set up TikTok shop and have everything done within TikTok, which really works the best. It just integrates much better than trying to send to Amazon. Also, another random point, it actually goes in line with Amazon PPC. It's traditional, like let's say Amazon advertising, like we have on Amazon targeting with like keywords and products. And now this is fairly new, is creator connection with Amazon, where we're testing this out. And that is where we are now basically, like for the longest time, we've been reaching out to Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube influencers and having them promote our product like on their platforms, and then driving that traffic to our Amazon listing or Amazon storefront. With the attribution links? Yeah, with Amazon attribution links. Now Amazon's sort of like connecting the dots, and they are bringing on influencers internally. So you basically, and I know you're familiar with this, but you can take your, like whatever product that you want, you take that product, enroll it in basically creator connections, and set like a commission. So it could be 5%, 10%. I actually think the minimum's 10. But anyway, let's say 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever you want to do, depending on your goals. If you're like trying to rank aggressively, like maybe do a high, like 30%, and you shoot them out to Amazon's influencer program, their creator connection program. And you might need to send some free samples. Like we sent about $100 worth of free samples to people. But then these creators will create content on Amazon, on their like Amazon storefront. They'll also create content on their YouTube channel or TikTok account or Instagram. So like, you know, people just go ahead and like they'll sign up and, you know, start promoting your product. Some of them you'll send out samples and they'll start creating this content like externally, like on different platforms. But we've started testing it. I think it's brand new, and we've made like 4 sales from it, but we're really excited to see where that goes. But yeah, creator connections, TikTok influencers with the shop, Google search ads. That's on the external side. Because Andy, I know you're kind of like the expert when it comes to Amazon.
I'm internal, right? So
yeah.
It was perfect for you to take over on that slide and talk about it outside. It was a perfect teamwork there. And I'm definitely gonna look a little bit more into that creator connections with clients. We've seen things like recently internal, like the brand tailored promotions, things like that do really well. But
that's a good point. Brand tailored promotions.
Yeah.
Do you have a video on that? Yeah. Oh, actually,
I don't. I should.
I don't. Actually, I do have a video on that. So it'll be if you guys are interested in some of these, the creator connection TikTok thing, that'll be later. I just realized for brand tailored promotions, because it's fairly simple to set up, sort of like
simple.
Like retargeting ads, basically, right? Retargeting people who viewed your products.
There's no ad spend, right?
Yeah, and you only pay. Wait,
the discount, only pay, whatever the discount is.
That's right. That's right. Yep. So it's like results based marketing. It's great.
So if you do a 10% discount, that's a 10% tacos, right?
Yeah, basically. Which is amazing. So yeah, definitely set that up. Actually, that's a great call out. I'm glad you called that out. Brand tailored promotions, I believe, only for brand registered sellers.
Yep.
It could be. You might as well check into like your Seller Central, see if you have access to that. But
yeah, I think it's under advertising, and then at the bottom it's brand tailored promotions.
Yeah, no, seeing like in terms of ACOS, yeah, great. Yeah. Not high spend, but fantastic.
Yeah, just ACOS. Additional sales. I've seen mostly the abandoned cart stuff do pretty well, and they keep coming out with new stuff, so you might have to update that video. Yeah. So yeah, jumping back into it, using data for your optimization, you want to start using the brand analytics, like I mentioned. Make sure you're downloading your search term report, which this is going to show you all your search terms that came from your exact, your broad, your phrase, your autos, your categories, and what the customer has seen and what they clicked on and what they used to purchase, right? So you want to go through the search term report, start to add negative keywords on the bad performers, start to take the best performers and launch them into their own campaigns if you don't already have them, things like that. I do recommend to track your performance over time, whether you're using a tool, a spreadsheet, whatever you do. Track these main numbers and these main metrics that you're trying to improve, and come up with a plan of action every time you decide to change something, right? I do recommend continuously split testing. We just did a full listing optimization for a client the other day, and they've asked recently, like, hey man, we've really noticed our BSR drop, sales are going up. What's going on? I'm like, your conversion rate is up because of that listing optimization. It improved organic, it improved ads, it improved everything. So the listing optimization conversion rate is going to help with that all sales. So I definitely recommend making sure yours is fully optimized and you're running those split tests.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, Andy. Like those two kind of points that you mentioned. One about like, this is one of the biggest things, like, hey, my Amazon PPC isn't performing well. It's like, okay, there's multiple ways to troubleshoot to figure out why. But a lot of times that I've seen, it's because the product sucks or the listing sucks. Like, for example, what I mean by that is the product is identical to every other option on Amazon, just a different logo. It's becoming less common because it's just outdated. That strategy did work like years ago. It was never a long-term strategy anyway. Don't do it, whether it worked or not, because it's short-term. It definitely doesn't work now. And so just the product sucks. Like you don't have a unique selling proposition. There's nothing unique and not like just different. There's no point in being different. Like I could go out like and just run around like naked and say that I only eat, from photosynthesis, I don't eat food. That's different. That's not good. Like, so when you're making your product different, make sure it's different based on actual data, keyword and review data that actually guides you. It's like, hey, like people are basically screaming out, we want this type of product. And you're like, got it. I'm listening to you. I'm going to craft this product based on what you wanted. And I know what you want from keyword data and review data. So anyway, the product fit, like just the product sucks, or there's a solid product, but they just took photos with an iPhone. Their photos suck. They have like 3, they're all like white background, crappy photos, terrible bullet points, no, A+ content. So good product, but bad listing. No. Okay. So now we have a great product. Okay, now we fix it. We have a phenomenal, high quality listing. Then we get to the Amazon PPC piece, because basically, as you, of course, well, is like advertising is an amplifier. So if you have a poor listing or product and you promote that, it's going to just, it's not going to perform well. Like, you're always going to waste money because you're sending people to a crappy thing that they don't want, or maybe they want it, but you haven't convinced them. It's like, I don't know if I want this. Wait, what are the dimensions? There's no information about dimensions. Like, they can't envision themselves using it. What's like, what are these different features? It doesn't have, like, they just like, okay, I'll leave and go to a competitor then, because they give me that information. So that was one thing. And the second thing about search term report that you mentioned, of like looking through your search term report, these are the actual, like, there's the keyword, that's what you target. And then your search term, that's what the the shopper actually types into Amazon. So you want to see what your shoppers are typing in to find, like, they type in keywords and then see your listing in your ad. And some of those, like, they'll have high clicks or high spend with no sales. Then you're kind of suggesting take those search terms and maybe add those as a negative exact to, like, your phrase, broad, and auto. But for those other search terms that, like, are getting sales that you're not already targeting, like, let's say it's like portable USB microphone. That's relevant. I'm not targeting that keyword, and it's getting sales because my auto campaign's targeting it. It's making sales. I'm like, okay, let me take that search term, and then I target that as a keyword. So both of those things, like targeting good search terms and then negating bad search terms. Again, kind of speaking for you a bit, but that's
perfect, man.
Kind of what I gathered a bit from.
That's it for the slides, everyone. Hopefully that was super enjoyable. I just did a whole beginner PPC masterclass series that goes super in depth on a lot of these topics. You know, you can click there. I could give you a link to the slides that you can take them yourselves. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, Andy, thanks so much. Yeah, we'll be linking link to your agency as well as your YouTube channel and all of this in the description section. So be sure to check that out. Andy, it's been fantastic. I know, high level overview, gone through a lot, but like I said, Andy and myself have got some really great tutorials. So be sure to check those out. And Andy, thank you again for your time.
And one more thing before I jump off. If anyone wants an audit, I do free audits for your account. Look at organic, look at PPC, look at everything, breaking it down for you, giving my recommendations on exactly what you should do, what you should do more of, what you should do less of. So that's free. If you go to add-habit.com/audit, you can get that.
Awesome. Well, Andy, thanks so much. So great having you, and look forward to the next one.
Yep. Thanks, Sumner. I'll see you later.